Yo, Sartron for back with another video. Now today's video, it's a story time. I'm just gonna get straight into it. So there was one time, lower down in the school, and this is related to the story, where you see rainbow looms, like those loom bands that people used to ping each other. My school was no different, and everyone used to ping them each other. There was one lesson we pinged them at the teacher. I went on his coat, and he didn't even clock, stay there the whole lesson. But then the school found out, and we had to clear up all the loom bands. The floor was covered. We had to pick up all the loom bands off the floor of that entire block. Can't lie, I was the main culprit. I won't lie, like, I'm not just telling these stories. I wasn't an extra in the movie. I was the main character. Like, I was the movie. I was the star character that was on all the promotional posters going around about the movie at all times. Whenever something happened, teachers are like, aye, and what did Sachi do to be involved today? Even sometimes I wasn't even involved, and I have to tell them, I'm like, look, you know what? I don't blame you for thinking I was involved, but you know, today I took a day out. I rested today. I can't lie, I rested. But this time I didn't rest. Back to the current, present day in the story. So the loom bands were like year 8, year 9 kind of thing. But in year 11, what happened was, I used to just like throwing things. Like, I've got very small attention span. Like, a very small attention span. So there must have been one time where this guy sat in front of me, like 2 desks in front of me in chemistry. Chemistry, they were like 4 like long, like class-wide desks. And they were like benches, like class-wide benches. And I must have been on the 3rd one. He was on the 1st one. He's at the very front. So the teacher's talking to the whole class. And this kid, I don't know what possessed him to do this, but he was cutting up rubber. And the teacher's right in front of him. This guy's cutting down rubber like he's in a trap. Like, bare cutting it down into blocks. And then teacher clocks what he's doing. He said, oh, put that in the bin. So he has to get all this rubber, like literally a handful of rubber, and put the rubber into the bin. I was just watching him like... I felt Pete for him. So, because I had bare rubber, I was like flicking the back of his head with the rubber, and he's getting the rubber to retaliate, but the teacher clocked. So, later on that same day, this teacher must have been at the back of the room helping someone with their work. And me being me, I don't know what went through my head, but I was like, look, if I flick the rubber and it hits him in the back of the head, he won't know it was rubber. Like, he might just think his head got itchy. He won't know for a fact that it's rubber. But obviously, if I miss, he will see the rubber like fling over his shoulder. So I need to aim this very carefully. So I was like, okay, cool. So I get the rubber on. That shit. It went over his shoulder. And then the guy turned around, like... And then, like, he was angry. He's like, look, nobody's leaving until somebody owns up. And I'm just like... I'm not owning up. And he said, oh, if you don't own up, I'm taking you to the headmaster. Whoever owns up, from now on, if nobody wants to own up, and then I found out who it was, you're going to the headmaster. I was like, stay dead silent. I knew it was me. I said dead silent. Like, if he doesn't know, I'm not going to hand myself in. So, this guy, this is where it gets peak. The only person who he had seen with rubber that day was the guy who he made put the rubber in the bin. If that even makes sense. So, he watched the guy pour all of his rubber into the bin, and now he's the one being accused of throwing the rubber at him, and I'm just sat there like, can't lie, I'm not handing myself, and if you got caught, pink for you. And he got caught, and where my class was, it was like right next to the main block. Like, there was like a little staircase, and the main block was there, and everyone just watched him walk over to the main block. I felt Pete for him. I was like, look, you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. And then to the teacher, this is where it got a little bit funny. That day, one girl must have left the room. So everyone's left to go. It was the last lesson of the day. Everyone's left. One girl stayed behind and started blabbing to the teacher. So then the next day, I'm minding my own business. We got the same lesson again, and this time we're in a different classroom. So we're all lining up outside the class to go into the class. The teacher comes up to me. He's like, oh, I've got reason to believe it wasn't him that threw the rubber. Do you know who did it? So I'm like, no, don't know what you're talking about, me. He said, oh, okay, interesting. All right, then. And I must have gone up to the guards like, what's wrong with you? Like, what? What's wrong with you? Just... Anyway, I got away with it that time. I actually bust the case. I beat that case. I didn't even beat the case. I wasn't on the case. Like, I avoided the case. But that happened once. Then, in the same room, the original room, the same lesson, the same room that the first incident happened in, there must have been one time, I wasn't so fortunate. There was one time we had a lesson, and there was like a pot of magnesium, and we were doing stuff with hydrochloric acid, and I was like, what happens if you mix magnesium and hydrochloric acid? Because I don't recall ever writing down that equation in my book. And I remember like when I was in like year 4, and one of my very good friends he went to year 7. This guy doing up chemistry every day at school. He's always telling me these mad stories, putting this stuff into this stuff. I'm like, you look, it's now year 11. I'm 5 years deep into my secondary school experience. I've never been pouring stuff into stuff. Like, what's going on? So I was like, look, you know what? Let me take matters into my own hands. So I was like, you know what? I've got some pipette. And it was like this tube thing, like some squeezy tube. And I squeezed it. And then I allowed bare hydrochloric acid to fill up the thing. And then I opened the pot of magnesium and I squeezed it in. I put the lid on. I kid you not. Within seconds, the pot got hot. Very, very hot. And I remember I ran to the front of the class and I put it to the front. I remember one girl, Emerald, if you're watching this, one girl, she must have picked it up. She almost dropped it. Luckily she wasn't too far off of the desk, but she picked it up, almost burnt her hand off. And I remember the teacher came back into the room and he did not place that pot at the front because he was out of the room at this point. Yeah, this guy comes back in and he sees the pot. He goes to touch it, literally almost burns his hand. He said, ah. And this guy's like, okay, everyone pack up. Everyone has to pack up the whole practical. Like, everyone's doing the practical that day. All had to pack up immediately. And the funniest thing, all these two irrelevant ladies in the chemistry office here. Like, if you've gone to my school, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Those two, Batman and Robin of the chemistry department, that do nothing. They always, literally, they walk about with like little cans of stuff with no intention of using it. I actually don't know what they're doing. They must have come out. I gave them their 15 minutes of fame because before this, they had nothing to do. Now, they had to defuse a bomb. Like, they literally actually had to defuse a bomb. So these, and bear in mind, I didn't know what would happen. Like, I was good at chemistry, I can't lie, but I was good at like calculations and that. Not necessarily chemical equations, which I probably should have been good at, but I didn't know that hydrochloric acid rapidly increases the heat, the temperature of a little pot of magnesium. I actually did not know that. So yeah, these teachers, these irrelevant ones, must have come in and I don't know what they did, but they had like gloves and that, and they rushed in, they grabbed the little pot and they went back into their little room. And this time I just owned up straight away. Like, the teacher's like, okay, who did it? I was like, look, let me not long this out. It was me, I can't lie. And I was in a gas mood because I did not know what had happened. I was excited. I was like, did I just do that? And then he must have called some assistant head teacher. And the assistant head teacher's like, oh, what have you done? But this is where I'm smart, yeah. That these teachers did not deep how smart I was. Fam, no one knew. You can't prove that I did that on purpose. Like, I did not know until I actually did not know what would happen. Yeah. So when you're trying to get me into massive trouble, how are you gonna word that? Like, how are you gonna create a day? But I didn't know I was creating a bomb. Did not know I was creating a bomb. And so the teacher, even the teacher herself, literally, unless you are a science teacher, you don't really understand like the depth of the situation. Like, someone just mixed a couple of chemicals that they weren't told to mix. Yeah, and obviously that in itself is dangerous. I'm not denying that. But it's not always going to end that bad. Like, I actually did not know what was going to happen. So the teacher, assistant deputy head, I don't even know what department she's special. I think she's a maths teacher. I can't lie. Don't actually know. But she just wasn't a science teacher, so she didn't really understand the situation. She just said, oh, you just have to do what you're told. And then I got banned from practicals. That was the last ever practical. I don't know what they got out of that. And I remember we had a match that day. I had a football match. I scored twice. Like, work, I scored twice. And then I remember I got home and my mum found out what I did. But again, she didn't really understand because what was there to understand? I just mixed two chemicals that I wasn't meant to mix together. And what? Like, that's how scientists originally discovered what you can and can't do. I'm just revolutionizing science, and you're trying to get me in trouble for that. Like, not really my fault. So I didn't really I got isolation. I think I got isolation for like 1 day, which was minor because at that point must have been my like 50th term in isolation. It was literally like a second home. I can't lie. Like, a couple of my belongings were still there from the last time I was there. So honestly, it was minor, but yeah, that's one other story. Honestly, I can't lie. Like, I'm looking at the stories I have to tell. not really in the mood to tell those stories. Like, it doesn't feel like there's enough to talk about. Like, I want to make them funny. Even this one, because you might not even understand the severity of the situation, even I'm not really laughing that much. I can't lie. Like, with everything going on in the world right now, R.I.P. George Floyd, too much is going on for me to be telling funny stories. Like, that's not going on. So, I've tried. Reactions will be back to normal, but I don't know. I don't know, really. It depends on where my mental state's at, because with everything going on, I just feel like doing videos about black people. I'm not gonna lie to you, but until then, I've been Such114. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. I'll be back again soon.